Everyone thought for a long time that William Shatner's wealth came only from his Hollywood paychecks. The truth is much more complex than that, though. Shatner, who was 94 years old, leaves behind a lot of money that he got from gaming, doing shady business, bad investments, and years of pain so bad that he once slept in a camper. But how could a man who was almost forgotten by Hollywood leave behind such an important legacy? After all, what will he really leave his family? Shatner's big break in Hollywood. Shatner got his first job in 1966. It wasn't meant to be important or historic, but it made him a lot of money. But as soon as he put on Captain James T., Shatner's life changed when he played Kirk in the second Star Trek pilot show. He was in charge of 79 episodes of the USS Enterprise. His wealth would be built on those 3 seasons, which he had no idea. At first, though, there was no reason to think they would. During the first season, he made between $5,000 and $6,000 per show. By the third season, he was making about $10,000, but he was thought to have made between $300,000 and $400,000 from the whole series. There is a good amount of money in this, but it is not nearly enough to make you able to live easily until you die. One thing, though, would change Shatner's view on money for good. He didn't get any residuals from reruns. Repeats of Star Trek became famous in the 1970s, and real money started to flow in. Everyone but the original gang got rich. The business made money for a long time. However, Shatner did not. And pretty much everything he did with his money after that one unfair situation was affected by it. He understood that he could never depend on companies, executives, or contracts in Hollywood to make his future safe. He would need to work for it. And before he could do that, he had to keep being seen. In the early 1980s, Shatner went back to TV and played the lead role in the police drama T.J. Hooker. Because of this show, he was able to get back the steady income he had lost. His pay quickly went up and now ranges from $50,000 to $75,000 a year. After years of irregular income, the show's 90-plus episodes are said to have brought him between $4 and $6 million, which was enough to help him get back on his feet. Then he found a new way almost without being told. Holding on to. Rescue 911 first aired in 1989 and quickly became a huge hit. Shatner's narration became an important part of American society on TV, and people watched every week to see disasters that really happened. It was easy for him to get away with about $1. $5 million over the course of 7 years. But what was more important was that the show showed people that Shatner was more than just an actress. Networks wanted to use his voice because his name was well known and people liked it. After a few years, his part as the strange lawyer Denny Crane on The Practice and its spin-off Boston Legal made him even richer. Reports say that his salary went up a lot in the following seasons, hitting between $150,000 and $300,000 per show. Between $10 and $15 million was made from his more than 100 shows. He knew something at this point that most artists don't know until it's too late. Sources of income don't have to go, but fame does. So he started saving the money that would grow into an empire much bigger than anyone had thought, all the while people were looking at the roles, the praise, and the showy public appearances. His family knew that he was healthy, but it wasn't clear what he kept, what he put money into, what he cared about, or what he gathered. Shatner knew that in Hollywood, strange things can happen. He had seen artists who were very rich lose everything. He didn't want to depend on companies, fame, or luck to make money because he had seen jobs end quickly. It's not a surprise that his Hollywood wealth is just the beginning. More ideas for businesses. He could always count on speaking to bring in money. After his most famous roles, he did more reality shows and documentaries that needed someone with a presence, warmth, and a voice that people could quickly recognize. He had a steady flow of money from movies and nonfiction shows like Weird or What that weren't affected by network politics or box office trends. Hosting work paid well, but getting things done on time was more important. There's one event, though, that most people still get wrong: ads. This is where things really changed. In the late 1990s, Priceline chose Shatner to be their negotiator marketing spokesperson. Everyone was shocked by how much younger he looked in the part, which was both charming and funny. The money he got was even more amazing than the attention the ads gave him. There was no set price for Shatner. Rather than that, he agreed to get some of his pay in the form of company stock or options. Because of this choice, one of the biggest lies in the history of star ads came true. People have been telling each other for years that he made hundreds of millions of dollars from Priceline shares, turning what was mostly a marketing effort into a really big windfall. A lot of people really thought he had a fortune that was bigger than any money he had made from movies or TV shows. In public, though, Shatner disputed the claim over and over, making it clear that he had never given out a windfall that big, won the $600 million jackpot that the media loved to talk about, or built up the kind of wealth that people thought he did. It was easier to understand what was true. Even though it wasn't the money miracle everyone had hoped for, his Priceline deal paid well, and the stock part gave him a good return. But the work itself made one of his best money senses stronger and made him a lot of money over the years. Deal with a brand early on, come up with creative ways to negotiate, and give the value time to grow. Priceline was just one part of his job as an advertiser, though. Shatner started to appear in a lot of national ads for tech, insurance, and consumer goods businesses. Each time he did something, he made more money. These well-paid, well-organized partnerships went on for decades as long as people liked the shows and didn't think about the money. The total amount of money he made from ads was several $1,000,000, a stream that slowly but steadily grew, showing that consistency can work better than showmanship. Besides that, they made money from live shows and gatherings. Shatner was often asked to be the star of Star Trek conventions, Comic-Con-style events, and other sci-fi events all over the world, and his fees showed how famous he was. A lot of well-known tourists make 5 to 6 figures every time they come. It was easy for Shatner to get to important events, picture ops, and autograph signings, which made him one of the most sought-after stars on the circuit. Through the years, these shows made a lot of money. Also, there wasn't as much air above as in movie scenes. He also set up his own tours, one-man shows, short Q&As, and speaking events where people could hear him tell the strange, complicated story of his life in his own special way. These shows only needed people to travel and help with production, and they made a lot of money. Over the course of many years of travel, they secretly added several $1,000,000 to his bank account. His writing also brought him a lot of money. He wrote a lot of well-known nonfiction and biography books. He was given a large advance and a fair profit rate for each. His books made over 7 figures in sales over the many years they were written. This was because they were in high demand and sold well. He didn't just own writings as his intellectual property. The tech war world is one of the best-known examples. It started as a book series and has since grown into comics, TV shows, and a short TV series. The brand never really took off, but it did make money from licensing fees, residuals, and small royalties from digital and reprint versions. When he read his own records, his royalties went up even more. It came as a surprise that music could make him money. There was a small but loyal fan group for Shatner CDs, which often had spoken word parts mixed with music. He was able to count on royalties, digital sales, and rare appearances to bring him steady long-term income, though not as much as from movies or TV shows. Shatner is now interested in businesses that operate online. Some of his YouTube movies, like Shatner Vision, made money from ads and sponsorships, which shows that he was always open to new ideas. When his limited edition NFT playing cards came out in 2020, they sold out very quickly. This caused a short but noticeable rise in sales, which is common for Star digital drops. Surprisingly, his picture has been used on Star Trek action figures, posters, toys, and other souvenirs. Every time a fan buys something with his picture on it, he gets paid royalties. His personal hobbies have even had an effect on his finances. Shatner started the Hollywood Charity Horse Show, a charity event that raises money for good causes with the help of sponsors and donors. Even though it was a good deed, it did boost his image and profile, which helped his brand in a roundabout way. A big surprise about Shatner's wealth is how much of it comes from things other than movies. As far as Hollywood goes, he has one of the best personal interests: riches and cars owned by Shatner. William Shatner's real wealth is built on bricks, wood, steel, and land. One of the most impressive things about his wealth is his homes. Each of them shows how well prepared he was for the future. Long before anyone thought he would live into his 90s and keep getting rich, he bought the house while he was running instead of using studio money or an agent's fee. In the mid-1970s, Shatner was jogging across Los Angeles when he came across an empty house. He stopped running when other people would have. It was in bad shape, but he still chose to buy it because it had a lot of potential. It turned out to be one of the most important things in his life in the end. This house is so unique, not because of how much it cost or where it is located, but because of what he did with it afterward. He really did rebuild it 4 times, and each time was a new part of his life. The first version was simple and clear because Shatner's finances were still getting back on track after the ups and downs of the early Star Trek years. Later, when his job options grew and his income leveled off, he moved to a new place. Whole areas were looked at again, and walls were taken down. He changed the house over and over to fit the life he was making there. Once he and Elizabeth Martin got married, they worked together on new pieces as well. She liked simple things, natural light, and lines that were straight. Their home had elements of both warmth and friendliness, because he liked both of those things. He does, however, have more than one house. Over the course of several decades, Shatner bought more homes in California. But, unlike some famous people, he never showed these things off in public. He didn't go on tours for magazines or put up pictures. He thought of real estate as a long-term plan that was reliable, steady, and, in the best sense of the word, boring. Besides his main home, he was said to have owned several other homes. Also, because he bought a lot of homes in Los Angeles counties before the market boom. Their values have gone up a lot over the years, thanks to decades of appreciation, rising neighborhood values, and the constant desire for homes near famous people. A lot of Shatner's property is thought to be worth 8 figures by some experts. That much money would be enough for his family to live for many generations. Shatner does, however, own a lot more than just houses and land. One of the most interesting things about his path to wealth was how much he worked in the show horse business. Shatner doesn't see horses as fun things to do or pretty things to look at, because he has spent a lot of time training, racing, investing, and building a name for himself in the equestrian business. He has access to the best facilities and stakes in many horses. Without a question, these stakes are a unique and important part of business. But his cars are the most valuable luxury items he owns. They are a whole new world of machine parts, motors, and collectibles that show more about him than any other role he has had. Throughout his life, he was known for always having expensive cars. He liked comfort just as much as speed, as shown by the fact that he often drove clean, classy cars like Mercedes-Benz and Bentley when he went public. That was only one part of his story about cars, though. Bikes were the ones that really made a difference. Shatner not only gathered them, but also helped make them. Rivet Motors and American Wrench made the Rivet One with his help. It was a limited edition custom motorbike that looked like it was made for a man who had played a starship captain. The bike was more than just something pretty. It was part of a project that brought together artists, engineers, and motors. There was a lot of interest, but not many were made. They only got more valuable over time, which is what happens with most limited celebrity tools. Shatner also collected a number of old cars over the years. Some he bought because they were beautiful cars from times he admired. Some he bought so he could show them off. And some he bought just because he liked the way they looked. Not all of them had to be made public, and some of them weren't. Collectibles are another important thing on his list of assets. The 2 of them were also naturally strange to Shatner. He was one of the most famous people in science fiction. So he had things from Star Trek. Some come from decades of being involved in the culture. Some are business-related, and some are personal. Things that he owned will always be worth more than other things that people acquire. Signed props, costumes, production materials, personal scripts, and even convention things are worth more because of his name on them. In addition, nostalgic things get more valuable as the market for them grows. Awards are also a way to remember a job that has been done for more than 50 years. There are people who gather these prizes because they are important to them. They are historical items linked to one of the most famous people in entertainment for fans. prizes, screenplays, annotated pages, and production items connected to William Shatner are all very valuable at auction, especially as the years go by and they become harder to find. The world has seen Shatner's accomplishments, fame, parts, interviews, and public appearances, but his life story is much more complicated. Most of his fans don't know about the problems, shadows, and personal events that have shaped the man behind the fame. What allows the success to happen? Today's success of William Shatner hides a time in his life when things didn't seem to be going so well. People were very upset when Star Trek ended in the late 1960s. The cast, instead of being able to move on to new opportunities, had the opposite happen. Producers turned down almost all new parts as soon as they saw Shatner's face because he was already booked for so many of the same types of roles. His field didn't know how to deal with him. The fact that he was now Captain Kirk shut more doors than it opened. Because things went so badly, he had to go through one of the worst times financially of his adult life. He told them that he didn't like sleeping in a camper, but they allowed him to do it because they were the only ones that could. In order to keep the money coming in, he acted in low-budget shows, small productions, and community theater. He was once barely able to pay his bills and was saving what little money he had left over to keep paying for his kids' needs. For a while, he wasn't a big TV star. He was trying to rebuild his life after losing the job that made him popular. He was a working father. In those hard times, he used them to build the kingdom that would make him famous in the end. In his personal life, he was married more than once, and each one had its own problems. A lot of time went by between his first marriage to Gloria Rand and his rise to fame. They got married in 1956. They made a life together while he was still climbing, unsure of himself, and taking any job he could find. The marriage did change, though, as did his job. The long work schedules and lack of predictability in their fields put a lot of stress on both of them. Adding insult to injury, their cash situation was also very bad. They were together for 13 years before they broke up in 1969. One girl was named Leslie. The other two were named Elizabeth and Melanie. After Star Trek, Shatner's income almost stopped coming in, but taking care of them stayed one of his top goals, even during the hardest years. Marky Lafferty was his second wife, and they got married in 1973. During their more than 20 years of marriage, Shatner was able to handle the middle years of his work, which were both a time of renewal and to start over. Marcy was there for him when Star Trek came back to life in reruns, and then again when it was reborn. But his busy work schedule, the stresses of Hollywood, and the imbalance that came with his rising fame made it hard for them to be together. Over time, they became less close, and in the end, their marriage ended. After being married for more than 20 years, they split up in 1996. He went through one of the worst times of his life when he married Nerine Kidd a third time in 1997. Nerine had a lot of problems with drinking, which put a lot of mental stress on the marriage and on Shatner, who tried many times to help her get better. He has talked about how painful and helpless it was to watch a loved one fight a sickness that kept pulling her farther away every time she tried to take control. Sadly, Nerine died in a terrible accident 2 years after they got married, in 1999. Her death, which was called an accident, was linked to her drug use. Shatner kept this pain with him for a long time. It was an unhealed wound that affected how he dealt with grief, relationships, and his own space in the future. He got married to Elizabeth Anderson Martin in 2001. During their almost 20-year marriage, he was stronger and more stable. He liked the softer parts of life, fashion, and horses, and so did Elizabeth. They made changes to the house he had owned for a long time in Los Angeles. They worked together, went on trips, and found a pace that let him balance his public life with a more private life at home. But even friendships that last a long time can end. Also, they got a divorce in 2020, which was 20 years after they got married. It wasn't a big deal when they broke up. They just said that their lives were going in different directions. Shatner's love for his girls never changed, even though he was married several times and had problems with each one. Leslie, Elizabeth, and Melanie saw their dad get back on his feet after losing his job and saw his business go up and down in ways that would change their lives decades later. They saw him take on new tasks and make the family richer. The ups and downs, losses and gains, and mental stress of each marriage shaped the man who made the money that his family will now enjoy. In addition to being hard for Shatner personally, those years changed how he dealt with a number of public problems in the years that followed. He was older, but he was still in trouble, and his dry sense of humor sometimes made things worse for people who weren't ready for it. In 2006, when many famous people were very aware of how they looked in public, Shatner did something that seemed almost impossible. He broke up a kidney stone and sold it. The stunt wasn't meant to get attention, though. He gave it to other people as a gift. Golden Palace paid about $25,000 for the stone. Shatner gave the money to Habitat for Humanity right away, so they could help build houses. Even though it was strange, it showed how well Shatner could use the unpleasant, surprising, and unusual. His connection with the actors from the first Star Trek, on the other hand, stayed much more complex. Behind the scenes, the Enterprise crew was never the happy family that fans thought they were. For a while now, tensions had been slowly rising. Some had been going on for a long time because of fights, workplace sexism, or personality clashes that got worse over time. The fight they had with George Takei got the most press. People talked about their differences at meetings, in interviews, and in autobiographies. They told each other stories about who backed or didn't support whom, complained about being treated badly, and were invited to get-togethers. Some of the jabs were funny, but some weren't. Even after the show stopped, the gang's anger stayed with them and became part of their mythology, even though Shatner often said that the fights were just misunderstandings or overblown complaints. The event that got the worst press, though, was Leonard Nimoy's funeral in 2015. Fans thought Shatner would go to Nimoy's wake when he died. Instead, he wouldn't stop the long-planned charity event that was happening all over the country because people had paid and traveled to attend. Many people were upset when they found out he wasn't at the funeral. People who commented on it thought it was rude, and it quickly spread on social media. Publicly, Shatner talked about the issue and said that he kept his promise to the group and later attended Nimoy's tribute events, but the negative comments were already going around. There were too many problems for people to remember that tasks can clash in bad ways. The world likes simple stories. Shatner was told again by this event that all of his choices, even the good ones, seem more important when he is famous. But that wasn't the end of the trouble. Going to meetings was another important part of his business, which caused some controversy. To keep up with the big stars on the tour, he raised his prices, made his lines longer, and raised his standards. Some fans didn't like how he acted at certain events, and others had a hard time getting in touch with him or thought the costs were too high. But he wasn't the only famous actor in the convention business who got this kind of abuse. Because Shatner is such an important figure in American culture, everything seemed greater with him. He sometimes refused, explaining the rules or what was going on behind the scenes at these events. He would sometimes just keep going because he thought the noise was part of being associated with a big brand like Star Trek. Not surprisingly, getting older came with a new set of issues. As Shatner got older, into his 80s and 90s, people in the movie business were both interested in and skeptical of him. A lot of people wondered if he could keep performing. They didn't think he was strong, important, or heard them. Shatner's answers were always the clearest. A lot of work went into it. He had to play parts. He put out music. He put together books. He stood on stage for whole shows and gave clear and funny performances. He did things like interviews, public speaking, and other things that most people 10 years younger would have been afraid to do. After a while, he didn't want to sound like a figure of speech, so he sped up when everyone else did. When he went to space, this refusal to fade away became even clearer. Through his trip with Blue Origin, he became the oldest person to reach the edge of the world. He was 90 years old at the time. That moment means a lot of things. Last but not least, the made-up space traveler Captain Kirk gets through the line. That wasn't a win for Shatner, though. It was a lot harder than the news sites thought it would be. Too much, and too emotional. People were shocked by what he said after the trip. Neither did he praise the success, nor the technology. Instead, he talked about how fragile Earth is, how empty space is, and how sad he feels when he looks into space. When asked about it, he said, "My trip to space was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it felt like a funeral. It was one of the strongest feelings of grief I have ever experienced. The contrast between the harsh coldness of space and the warm care of Earth below filled me with overwhelming sadness. Every day we are faced with the knowledge that we are destroying Earth even more. The extinction of plants, animals, and animal groups. These things have changed over 5 billion years, and we are the reason they will never be seen again. It scared me to death. Shatner is known for sharing his own life stories to help others and start talks. It got him a lot of attention, so he used it to talk about saving the world he had just seen in a new way, conservation, and being aware of climate change. All of these times, Shatner has shown the same mix of strength and self-awareness that helped him get through the worst times of his life. And even when it got too bright, he kept using the flashlight as a tool instead of a burden as he worked and moved. Some people liked how honest he was, while others didn't like it and talked about what space tourism means and how bad it is for the Earth. He has built up a huge wealth for his family because of this, which is truly amazing. What do you think about how rich William Shatner is? Please answer in the place given below. If you like this video, please click on the next one that comes up, like it, and check out our channel for more.